Okay, I've got my big cooking pot filling with rainwater. When I was growing up, we always used the rainwater to make soap with, and we had a big old band of stormy weather coming, so I said I'm going to go put my big old pot on the porch and collect some rainwater. So we've got our rainwater to make our soap with. Okay, I'm going to try something here when I'm making my soap. I don't know if it's going to work. It may not, but I'm going to go ahead and try it, because you never know you know how things are going to work until you try. But I wanted to make a pine scented soap, and we got these pine needles here, so I'm going to pick a few pine needles and then cut them up and see if I can get some of the oil and scent into the soap. So we'll just see how that goes. Okay, that seems to be enough to do one batch. I'm going to grind them up in the blender, and to open up the needles a little bit and to get the oils out. We'll just see how this goes. Okay, now I'm going to measure out my lye. And one thing I want to mention about this lye is this is what I was able to find. And you see here it says 100% lye. And that's exactly what you want. I mean, if you don't make your own. You know, it can't have any other things in it. And what I'm going to try and do is find out how much I need to make in this without having to measure it with a scale every single time. I mean, you probably should, but if you're going to use the same recipe. So let's see, we want roughly 4.5 ounces of lye. Okay. Ooh. Okay, I'm almost there. That's close. Oop, that's a little bit too much. So going to be touchy, I think. Okay. 4.5. That's as good as. But see, now I've got this little cup here, and if I mark it on the side, that's what I'm going to need from now on for this. So I don't have to do this every single time. Okay. So let me put the lid back on this and get ready for the next step. Okay, this weight measurement was 4.5 ounces, and that turns into 14.1/2 tablespoon. This measure with this tablespoon. So I can mark this little cup or measure this measurement out for next time. Okay, and I've got my rainwater from outside right here, and I've got 7 ounces of that. I don't know if you can see, but there's 8 ounces right here and 6 ounces right here, so it's right in the middle. Probably can't see that too well. Okay, here we've got our tallow in with the pine needles that I was harvesting earlier. And I don't know if this is going to work. We'll just have to see. But I want it on a gentle, real gentle. And it's got to get up to, I think, 90 degrees. So I'm going to let this just kind of simmer for a minute. And maybe try and extract some of the oils and goodies and stuff out of the pine needles. Okay, in the meantime, while the needles are warming up in the tallow, I'm going to add the lye to the water. And this really should be done outside because it's pretty bad. But I got my back door open, so, and I'm right by the back door, so. But while all this is going on, see, I've got an old jar and a wooden spoon, and you always add the lye to the water and not the water to the lye. It could explode if you do that. This does heat up, and it has to be dissolved thoroughly, and both the lard or tallow mixture and the lye mixture has to be at a similar temperature. And anything that's used for this soap making should never be used for food. I'm going to have to mark this wooden spoon with some marks and keep it separate from my other spoons because, you know, with lye, you don't want to have that going on. But I've measured out my 7 ounces of rainwater, which I saved on the porch earlier in my big pot. So this is rainwater. We'll just dissolve our lye just a little bit, and then we'll just move on to the next step. There's not much to this. I could keep doing this for a long time, but anyway, you see the condensation on the side of the jar? It's heating up. It gets hot. So anyway, and also we've got our lye mixture. It's pretty warm. I mean, that's pretty doggone hot there. That's why I'm just using an old jar. That way, you know, it would probably melt plastic actually if you put it in plastic. When I was a kid, we used to make it. My Aunt Ruth had a big crock. It was a big ceramic crock, and I mean, that thing was probably a inch thick, big old thing, probably 3 or 4 gallons. And I've been looking for one of those actually, because I always thought that's exactly what you had to have. I've put off soap making a long time because I actually thought you had to have a ceramic crock. But you know, we have the internet now, so I've been studying. It says, you know, a glass jar is just fine, you know, or a glass bowl. It just, you don't want to use it again for anything with food. I don't know, a glass probably would wash out, but I'm gonna just err on the side of caution and just use this old I forget what it is, jalapeno slices. Oh, I eat a lot of those things. So it's a 1/2 gallon jar, so it's working out nicely. So we'll just we're just about ready for the next step. Okay, this is the tallow mixing in with the pine needles, and I cut up the pine needles. I think I mentioned that earlier. If I didn't, I'm mentioning it now. But I cut up the pine needles so there would be more exposure of the needle to the oil. It's not exactly as piney as I kind of thought it would be, but it does have a pine scent. Well, I guess enough to make my house smell like a Christmas tree, so that's pretty good, I guess. So, but anyway, I wanted it on a kind of a gentle simmer, and I'm going to turn it off here in a minute because the needles are starting to lose their color a little bit, but it looks like it might even make a little bit of a green color to the, I don't know. We'll just have to see. This is just an experiment. Alright. while I'm waiting for this to cool down to the right temperature, both the lye water and the tallow needs to be around 85-90 degrees, and I've been testing it for the past 30 minutes and it's still going above 110, 115 for both. So, but in the meantime, I'm going to be trying to bruise up these pine needles and just see if I can release a little bit more of the oils and stuff while we're waiting for it to cool down. And then when it cools down, we'll combine the two together. Okay, now I'm removing the pine needles from the tallow. I've let them stay in there a little while and get the essence. It smells nice and piney. So we're going to take those out. Okay, I've got most of the pine needles taken out, and now I'm gonna try and do this one-handed. I don't have a. Let's see if this will work. I want to strain this just like that. And you can see there's still some needles up in the pan. This little strainer will get it. Okay. And we'll just let that. There's not many in there. I managed to get it all out. And see, this is an old coffee container. Again, you can't really use things for food, you know, like a bowl or something if you had soap stuff in it. So the next step is to pour slowly our lye water into this. They're similar temperatures, so let's give it a go. Let's see how it goes. It says to do it a little bit at a time. So we'll just pour the rest of that lye water in here, and we'll just come back in a few minutes and see how it is. So you can see the mixture is getting a little bit thicker. Just a little bit thicker. It needs to be quite a bit thicker than this. So we'll check it out in a little while. I'm going to keep stirring it. You got to keep stirring it. Okay, here's my soap. This is maybe about an hour after I poured them in. I got a little bit sidetracked between stirring. You really didn't miss anything. It was just stirring for quite some time and then pouring them into these little containers. These are like little hot sauce containers, and I think this one's like a cat food thing, but look how pretty it'll make the soap. But anyway, when I poured it in here, it was real clear looking, and you can tell it's pretty milky looking, I guess, now, you know. So I set the little canisters in these old trays here, just, you know, in case they spilled or whatever. But these need to sit in here for about at least 24 hours. So maybe tomorrow night I'll come and see how they're setting up. And we'll try and take one out of the mold and see how that works. Okay, this is the soap after about 2 days after we poured it in the molds. And I actually was afraid that this wasn't going to set up, because if you notice here, I had touched it and it kind of came up, and it stayed. It was firm, but it was soft enough for me to make an indentation in it, and that just wasn't good, so I figured I would have to remake it. But now it's not holding a print. It's rather firm, and I think in a couple of more days, after it's drying out a little bit more, we can pop it out of the molds. I mean, this process should take a little bit, it should happen a bit faster than this, but I'm using a different kind of grease, and I didn't have a stick blender. I was just doing it with a spoon, and I was stirring it for hours. So, this is a little bit different than the soap that we used to make when I was growing up. But anyway, I'm going to give it a couple more days to dry out, and then we'll try and unmold them and see how that goes. Okay, now I'm going to cut the soap into bars. It's set up enough. It might be a little bit creamy, but it's solid enough to go ahead and cut and pop it out of the mold. So we're going to do that. And here we have some soap. It's not the prettiest soap, obviously. I think I got a little hasty trying to get it out of the molds. I think if I'd have left it in a little bit longer, it would have probably it would have been a lot smoother and everything. But this is the first batch of soap I've tried to make in over 20 years, and I was using a different kind of grease, and it was it's raccoon grease, and it's a very, very soft grease, and I wanted to try this recipe with that, but I think the next time I make soap, it's going to have another kind of grease in it to kind of make it a little stiffer. I think that's kind of the issue here, and my impatience. But it is soap, and it is very nice, and it does lather up. When I was taking it out, a little piece fell out of the this one. So, but anyway, I'll show you. Okay, I wanted to show you how my soap lathers. So excuse the mess in the sink. This is an old house, and as you can see, this is a pretty old sink. So, anyway, but this soap, it's still a bit soft. This is that little piece I got off of that one when I was taking it out of the mold. But you can see that it really lathers good. See, look at that. And it's just going to get better. It's going to, the bars are going to continue to dry out, and it's not going to be as soft in a couple of days, after it dries out a little bit more. But that's really not bad for some natural grease, bush grease, I guess, from the raccoon, and they live in the bush, and the the lye that we used, and rainwater, and the pine needles, which it does smell a little bit piney. It's pretty neat. But just for 4 ingredients, I think, and a little bit of time, there's plenty of really nice, good soap that's homemade. So you just can't beat that. I love stuff like that. And using those little molds you know, the little hot sauce molds and the cat food molds. You know, those are fine. I just need to be patient next time. And, you know, just that's half the fun, is just repurposing things for, you know, life in general. All right, well, that's my soap, and don't laugh too hard. I know it's not pretty, but it is functional, so that's kind of what we want here. So I'll try and make some more soap soon, and we'll check that out. Okay, I made some new soap and put a little bit more lye in it when I was making it, because these were real soft. After a few days they were still soft. And these I made last night, and I put I want to say, let's see, it was 14 and a half tablespoons for this one. I put 18 in this, and it firmed up really quick and really nice. I mean, it's not creamy at all. It pretty much just popped right out of the molds. One thing is, I probably should spray the molds, maybe with a little Pam or something, or coat it with the grease that I made the soap from or something, so it'll just kind of pop out easier. But this is a nice firm soap, this is, and it's got tea tree oil in it and a little bit of turmeric for color, and you can see the difference in color. It's pretty nice. But I think the stiffer soap might be better for grating. It might be better for grating into your to make a liquid soap, but the bar is very firm. I mean, I'm pressing on it, and see, it got the pattern of the mold, which was mushrooms came in this, I think. But anyway, it's still firming up, you know, and it's gonna be awesome. So anyway, just a little note to that. See y'all next time.